were being pursued by government soldiers. Many of my friends died in the process, but I sustained a bullet here. We were being taught one simple philosophy that one bullet must claim one life. With the government soldiers, their supply of ammunition was steady, so they would just fire rapidly. But for us, the principle was a single bullet must claim a life.
On July 4, 2000, Dominic Ochola was abducted by the Lord's Resistance Army, a notorious rebel group composed almost entirely of child soldiers. He was 14 years old. Over a decade later, as Uganda has experienced relative peace for the past 6 years, Dominic sat down for a series of interviews to share his story. With one simple message: a person's past does not have to dictate their future.
I have been a former child soldier with the Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA. Currently, I work as a radio presenter. I live in northern Uganda. This is where I was born and raised from. We had a hut here. Actually, this is the spot where we had a bigger house, this one here. In 1986, that was when the LRA rebel activities started in northern Uganda.
Originally, LRA Commander Joseph Kony claimed to be fighting against the Ugandan government's marginalization of his Acholi people. But since its inception, the LRA has only specialized in two things: terrorizing its own people and forcefully recruiting young children to be soldiers and sex slaves. To date, it's estimated that the LRA has killed over 100,000 people. When he was 8 years old, Dominic's parents became part of that statistic.
Many were killed in the process, and my dad also, and my mom died. But I don't know whether you're able to see this burnt thing here. They were forced into a big grass-thatched house. It was a very big house this side, yeah? All of here. And the house was set ablaze. And see some remains here. There are even some bones in there, which I don't want to go so much into. Others were killed right under those trees, while the adults were brought in here and set ablaze, including even my father and mom. It was done from here.
Across 4 countries, the LRA has abducted over 70,000 people. At least 30,000 have been children under the age of 18.
They would abduct young children who are easily indoctrinated, who are easily manipulated.
2 years after his parents' death, Dominic's older sister Katie was kidnapped in another raid on their village.
She was taken into captivity and she never came back up to now. Rumors has it that she was killed while she was trying to escape. We came and took refuge in Gulu here with a few relatives who were helping us. She has been a very good mom. Actually, I call her even mom because she has been taking care of us for a long time. Along the way, we could go back to the village to try to dig because we could not afford food. We could not afford buying food here. And we had to really risk because we wanted to eat. I had my garden here. I was actually seated here in the morning and she was doing some weeding. Before long, I had a very strange sound coming from this side. I met a group of rebels. They were about 400 in number. They stopped me. They claimed they never knew the area, so I should act as a guide. If I had run that very day, probably they could have beaten her, they could have killed her. So when they came, they picked me up and she was just left crying here. I took them, and when I asked them that, can I now go back? They told me that I was not guiding them for fun. It's high time I should know I have gotten a job to protect our village people from the government troops.
At age 14, Dominic was forced to serve as a soldier in the LRA, the same group that had murdered his parents and sister.
It was a group that belonged to the late O.T. Vincent, who was second in command to Joseph Kony. Joseph Kony claims he has the spiritual power that has been leading him, that has been at the forefront of protecting his soldiers and protecting his fight against the government of Uganda. On top of the hill, there are specific holes that had been drilled. It symbolized the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The whole army unit would come here, dip their barrels in the water, and then move on. Others, they would just use it to sprinkle on soldiers and those abducted. The water itself that is in those three holes has their own spiritual power. After coming to this hill and then you engage like in a battle, you would be very successful in it. Many people will be injured during the process, but few death. And yet on the government side, you realize that several of them would be dead. The abbreviation UPDF simply stands for Uganda People's Defense Forces. This one, UPDF talk, literally means UPDF is being faced with death. When Joseph Kony took his movement from here, it's believed that this was the hill that gave him the blessing. He began, recruiting people like a religious denomination that would recruit believers. Somehow people were able to begin thinking that the LRA is not merely commanded by a human person. They believed that Joseph Kony had some spirit that drive him, that directs him.
As the war intensified, civilians were evacuated from their villages, which had become the battlegrounds between the LRA and UPDF soldiers.
Many people were forced into internally displaced persons camps for easier protection, for easier security.
By 2005, overcrowded and underfunded IDP camps were home to more than 1.4 million people in northern Uganda. Emmanuel was one of them.
Beginning life here was really a problem. The gunship was moving around, mobilizing people, showing people where to pass, what, just like that, and also trying to let the rebels not to attack the people.
What amazes the civilian population is the fact that we would even go and abduct children near where they are protecting people. And explains probably why the war took long, because the soldiers themselves were not so much willing. They were not having the will to fight with one heart to protect the country. After all, why should I go and die when I have my family suffering home. So they would dodge us.
There was nowhere you could go and sleep. You just sleep where the darkness gets you, you sleep there with your children.
Instead of defending us from corn, why has the government left us in corn's mercy?
An adult would fear to die, but a well-indoctrinated child could have the courage, could have the ambition to be recognized as a hero.
They have been giving us some kind of the training, just to convert us from the spirit of civilian to be rebels.
As a measure of instilling the strength in you and to make you very brave, you are forced to go and kill.
To recruit you into the force the day you have been abducted, you are made to kill. And they believe that that one strengthens your heart to stay with them.
For my first time to see it badly, they forced us to kill one of my best friends also. So they put him to lie down. Then the people, they just whoop on him, they jump on him, just jumping only until he died.
Children as young as 10 years, 8 years would be carrying guns. They would be commanded to kill, and they would kill really heartlessly. They would kill brutally. When you get abducted, they ask you to tell them your story before you join them. So you will tell them that my parents were killed, and then they will tell you, for example, Dominic, your parents were set ablaze in a hut. If you go back home, you don't have a sister. If you have relatives, probably you'll find all of them killed. We were not the ones who killed you, Dad. That was something done by the government forces. And for you to revenge the death of your parents, you have to fight.
What Corn's rebels were doing was not affecting the government. Corn was killing his tribesmen. Corn was looting the property of his tribesmen. Corn was abducting his tribesmen. In fact, it was not affecting the government in any way.
It lacked agenda because all they could do was, invade places, massacre people, loot, rape young girls.
Along the way, my conscience informed me that I don't think we were doing the right thing. Because if it was a genuine rebel group, then they should expand to the rest of other countries.
After 2.5 years in LRA captivity, Dominic finally found the opportunity and the courage to escape during a raid on one of the villages. He spent 3 days in the trees without eating before he came across a group of government soldiers.
I had my gun, I had my ammunition, I was well equipped, but I was scared coming out. I was scared surrendering.
After being detained for 3 months of interrogation by the military, he was released to a local rehabilitation facility.
I underwent a series of rehabilitation processes because they would want to know how stable you are mentally. If you are sound enough, you can make a very rational judgment. If you can really forget about the trauma that you went through while you were in the bush.
Now 17 years old and wanting to return to a normal life, the Rehabilitation Center sponsored Dominic to go back to school.
If I went back to the village, who am I going to stay with? My parents were no more. I didn't know where my sisters were. No close relative was around. So I chose to go back to school. I engaged in school politics. I contested for the position of a head boy in the school. Along the way, it was very humiliating because very many people who knew I was abducted and then came back later on were stigmatizing me. They were using that as a way of rubbishing my chances to be elected. They would say, if you elect Dominic, he has been in the bush, he's so wild, he would be beating you up. You know, he's very merciless, so you cannot elect such a person to lead the school.
Despite the defamation used against him, Dominic was elected as the school's student representative.
I wanted also to serve as an inspiration to the rest who looked at their lives and tried to shy away from participating in events like leadership positions.
Some victims will not get over it very fast. Others, they have tried, they have had the chance to be sponsored, to go back to school, but they have not made it, they have not. So I found it, yeah, a little unique of him to have gone through that path, and yet he can still come out and break it and make it into something. That to me was outstanding.
Dominic applied for a college scholarship, awarded only to the highest graded student in his class, a long shot for an undereducated soldier in recovery.
I was actually doing all my papers without eating because we could hardly afford food. But against all the odds, I was able to perform well. I got a first grade.
With the scholarship and assistance from friends overseas, he was able to attend college and chose to pursue a career in journalism.
We had our stories untold. Nobody knew about northern Uganda and the war. So I feel journalism would give me an opportunity to, give back to my community, tell the untold story, reveal the truth. I was freelancing with so many media houses. Because of the good work that I used to do, I was then officially and formally employed by the New Vision.
Station Makabigi, Gare Piera Bungana Pistonda Beer Piera Bungana Borotonda Chill, Radio Rupina 1111.
Dominic uses every afternoon to entertain and inform his recovering community.
How would it affect the local person? How would it affect the local business? What would a local person want his or her leader to do for them?
For his shows, I mean, people call, people thank him about what he's doing.
3 or 4 years for him in the radio, and he's really doing great.
I would love to engage in politics someday, but for now, I feel I should do a lot to help young people like myself be self-reliant and live a productive life.
Whether in the media house or whether in community activities, those are qualities that the current Uganda needs.
On Saturday mornings, Dominic hosts a program aimed at educating the young people of Uganda.
I host elders from different backgrounds to come and give lessons, lectures to young people who would be listening in. Some children are out there without parents, so that can be the only medium to reach them and teach them on how to live a good life. I have gone through the pain of living without parents. I have seen how hard it is for children to survive without their parents. I'm a father of one. I can say I'm a single father.
Shortly after finishing high school, Dominic and his longtime girlfriend conceived a baby boy. Her parents never approved of her being with a former rebel soldier and disowned the child.
They treated me like a killer. That's how they looked at me, that how do you go to an ex-combatant, you get it? He was in the bush killing people. He may even end up strangling you at night. So What the family advised her was that she should deliver. After delivering, she should hand over my child and she should go back home.
At 18 months old, Joshua was left for Dominic to raise on his own.
In every moment of decision making, the best thing you can do is the right thing, and the worst thing you can do is nothing. To Joshua, I am more than simply a father. I play with him like a brother. I play with him like my best friend.
Joshua is now 5 years old and will soon learn from his father that a future is not simply given to you. You have to create it for yourself.
I have experienced the war itself. I've been abducted, I've been there. I've also seen how many people are struggling with life simply because they don't have the means.
When we are sharing the kind of work we do, he's like, does work at the radio station. Then I would tell him my experiences of working with the communities. Then it was like, look, I think we can do something here.
In the aftermath of the Civil War, many youth in northern Uganda are struggling without parents, without an education, and in a region where the HIV, AIDS, and poverty rates are double the national average. Dominic and Lawrence are developing a program called Action for Youth Empowerment. It will be aimed at giving young adults the skills to better themselves and develop their communities.
Action for Youth Empowerment is geared towards empowering the youth live a self-reliant life.
As in how the effect of the war had changed lives of young people who should be the future of this country.
The non-profit organization will focus on training vulnerable youth in farming and vocational skills to become less reliant on humanitarian relief and handouts from NGOs. In many ways, Dominic's life should have been lost, but he reclaimed it. His hope is that through agricultural skills, business education, and HIV/AIDS awareness, the remaining young people of this region can reclaim the lives that the LRA tried to take from them as well.
I would love to see many other young youth, joining the creative ventures, struggling for their own lives, doing something that can benefit them for a long term. The bigger side is down there.
On the land he inherited from his relatives, the very same fields where he and his sister were kidnapped and enslaved, Dominic wants to do the opposite. He wants to give young people an opportunity.
A very big piece of land that I really intend to use it for the project, to do agriculture at a large scale. Education is becoming very expensive. In the event that you are not employed, as a parent, you might not even have gone to school. So, but if you have an investment of the sort, that would help you harvest ready money from it, pay your children to school, meet your medical bills, and try to support your family. Right from here until down there. It can't even reach, I think, can reach 1,000 hectares. If you could get some means of developing it, that would be great. Just a startup. I feel as a young person, you have a call to answer. Action for Youth Empowerment, I'm looking at it as a project, if well managed, would really see a number of youth employed. It would create an opportunity for them to develop their ideas into bigger dreams.
Youth like Emmanuel, who after losing his parents during the war works to support his younger siblings through school and coordinates activities for the other children in the former IDP camp.
Did you build this when you came?
Yeah, I built this when I came. By myself. It was me who built it here. I just molded the bricks, those ones.
Really?
Myself. And
Wow.
I carrying this on the head. Carried all of those ones.
And so you've been living here since 2003?
Yes, I've been living here.
I've lived a very positive life. I don't so much dwell on the past. I have always wanted to move a step ahead each and every day.
Looking at him, you can never think he went through that hell because of how he lives his life, buoyantly, without caring about yesterday.
And also want to be an inspiration to so many youth, to so many children who had a similar growth, who went through a similar painful process that I went through.
You read about others, they've been in the friends who have been in the same past like him, but they have not recovered so much. They have had the same opportunity.
I want to give back to my community. I want to be remembered for the great things that we do.
And every time I'm with him and I'm like, I've had a fair pass. And how much determination do I have to go out and take on to something?
I grew up in a very crooked way. I have seen tragedies in life. I have seen people fail in life. I have seen children derailing from the normal path to a good future. What makes my life keep going is simply being strong, because you will never realize how strong you are until being strong is the only option you have.